Well, welcome to my first ever live stream. Give it a moment in the hope that we might get more, but if it absolutely comes to it, it'll just be the three of us having a rather nice time listening to an album. You just post in Discord to let people know that it's up as well. You get to listen to the sound of me typing. I'm sure that's very enjoyable. Super exclusive indeed. Yes, I shall post in PBRPG. I think this counts as news. I'm tempted to just start at 7 regardless, though. Jimmy has a calibrated paper ruler to not blow our ears out. It's very true. To explain that one, my music player does not have any markings on the axis, which means I had quite a bit of fun trying to work out what was too loud and what was too quiet. For the record, you're only going to be listening at about 25% in just a moment. Oh, hello, Essa. So yes, I had to make a strange little paper ruler for the music player, which would allow me to hold it up to the screen and know what percentage. So yeah, you'll be listening at 25% of full volume. If I were to absolutely push it to an extreme, I believe it would be quite a bit too much. You will also notice, by the way, there is something of a delay between me seeing your comments and me speaking. That just seems to be something to do with how this system works. So there we go. I'll give it a few more minutes just in case we get anybody more. I think we've got a nice little set of people. I'll tell you what, shall we kick things off? So, we're going to be listening along to the Mithrym album. This is a set of tracks which can be used for honestly any game, except for the couple that have lyrics in them, which are rather Mithrym specific. The majority of tracks in this are nice and generic, the sort of thing that you could have the background for just about any TTRPG. We've got some nice calming downtime music, we've got some mysterious exploring, investigating sort of music, and some very tense combat music. Some rather fun dance tunes as well. Just to say a little bit about it, I had a lot of fun. I really did, researching various groups, speaking with them, talking to them, trying to get things sorted so that they could do some really immersive tracks. Runa is the group you're going to hear in a moment, who did most of the instrumental. A couple of performers that did those with vocals as well, which we'll get to. So, without further ado, let's kick things off with track one. Track one, oh, it is titled How It All Begun, or Ian's Hammer. Here we go. With any luck, you should be hearing music any moment.
The void was dark, no heat, no sound before
think that's possibly my favourite moment just there, where the hammer strikes just at the right moment. So a quick bit of background for this one. The chap who did this track said he was absolutely brilliant. I spoke to him about 3 months ago and said, look, I wanted to do this. Oh, there's that hammer again. And I gave him the link to the website and said, yeah, this is for setting. It would be wonderful to have some tracks to go with it. And he went away for about 2 months. And honest to God, I thought that I was never going to hear from him again. And then he comes back and he's like, so I've written this, what do you think? And I swear he knows the lore of Mithrym better than I do. He wrote this amazing piece there about the fall of Imu, the rise of Mithrym, Ian's banishment of him to the frozen waste. It was beautiful. Absolutely love it. So yeah, that is the first track. That's a demo track that any of you that checked it out would have heard on Bandcamp. This one that we're just moving into now, though, simply entitled Welcome to Mithrym. This was the first one that Runa made, so this is fully instrumental. The original plan with this was to have something which would sound like a tavern tune, the sort of thing that you could have in the background for exposition. That said, it's got a bit more of the general sort of feel to sort of beginning the adventure and starting things out, which is how it ended up becoming the opening one, Welcome to Mithrym, giving a nice sort of place setting. This is the track as well that anyone who is currently backing me on Patreon, anyone who starts backing me on Patreon between now and when this goes live on the 15th of May, will get this track absolutely free. You'll get sent a link and you can download it and it will be yours to keep forever. Oh, yes, sorry, I've read. Are the lyrics going to be available with the album? The lyrics will indeed be available with the album. They will be visible on Bandcamp. Anytime you listen on there, you can download them as a text file from there as well. So lyrics to both How It All Begun and Ian's Lullaby, which is the final track that we'll hear in a bit. Both of which have full lyrics to them. There were lyrics to the first one, Essa. The one we were just listening to, not this one. Welcome to Mithrym is fully instrumental, so again it can be used with any setting. The key thing is that it has a nice generic fantasy vibe to it. I think it does anyway. Something about that combination of the plucked strings and the nice beat of the drum there. Very atmospheric. Personally, I think I'd probably use this one for sort of when running exposition or setting up the beginning of a campaign. Quite nice, sort of, there's a sense of adventure to it, but there's also a calmness. Nothing's too tense at the moment. It's relatively easy to talk over, I hope, and gives a real nice sort of setup to what you might be doing. Runa, by the way, very responsive group, sent me all sorts of samples while we were working on it. They have an absolutely amazing array of medieval and Celtic instruments. Oh, so were you not Yes, you should be able to hear something. There should be sound coming through. Hopefully other people can hear it, if you could confirm for me. So that was the end of Welcome to Mithrym. We're now moving into track 3 by the Lakes of Kellin. Possibly the most relaxing one we have. This one was designed for downtime, so a period of sort of quiet leveling up, or shopping, or general sort of rest, relaxation. To put it in context, Kellin is the northern portion of an island which has Angmark as the other sort of main section. Heavy-handed, as so much of the naming convention of the background of Mithrym is. Believe it or not, Kellin is based on a sort of a combination of Scotland and Wales. It's supposed to be Celtic. The Lakes of Kellin, imagine that you're sort of sat by one of the Scottish lochs, just relaxing, letting the day just drift by. Angmark, again, believe it or not, is based on England. The language of Angmark is Anglish. The lore of Mithrym goes that Gallio, which is just across the channel onto the mainland of Turania, which is loosely based on France, originally invaded the island and formed Angmark. Angmark then claimed their independence from Gallio, and ever since then Angmark and Gallio have been at war. A point that will come up in just a minute, funnily enough. It's that war which a lot of the stories that I've written have been sort of set amongst, very much based on the Anglo-Frankish wars of basically all of the last millennium. Those of you that have been playing the wars in Richten, though, will note that it's not the main place where there's a lot of fighting going on. Richten, Tilio, Espon make up the rest of Turania, which is loosely based on Europe. Oh, hey Jimmy, glad you could make it. Hope you are finding this music nice and relaxing. Just try not to fall asleep. I think I said to Centauri while we were doing the first sort of listen throughs of this to test the tech, this is the main one that I could imagine just having on one of those like meditation or relaxation sleep albums, because I think I could just have this on repeat and it would help me get sort of well off. It's something about the pipes, that sort of bird song, the long strings, so wonderfully relaxing. But yeah, so you could play this during a game to mark any sort of period of downtime. That said, we're now going to see quite a change of pace as we move into track 4, the Muster of Gallio. So as I mentioned, the lore is that Gallio and Angmark have been at war for time out of mind. Gallio formed Angmark, and then Angmark seceded. And Gallio has been on this sort of permanent quest to try and retake. Now, as it is, the track itself could be used for any sort of combat or tension that you really want to build. There is this continued tenseness to it. But a bit of background to it, the story of Gallio, sort of the latest that's happened with Gallio, is that deciding to finally sort of deal with Angmark once and for all, Gallio sent a fleet of merchant ships with soldiers in disguise across the channel and up the Tulloch River towards Eofric, which is the capital of Angmark. The idea was that they would get all the way to the main city and then burst out, sort of Horse of Troy style. However, they were found out by divine knowledge that came to priests in Angmark, and the merchant fleet was set upon by the Anglish soldiers in the Tulloch Valley. A battle then ensued where they were forced to leave the ships, but because the general of the Gallian army had made a deal with Immu for great power to take Angmark. He was able to slaughter the first regiment that was sent against him. Now, a fully pitched battle had to happen, but that said, they were found out. They couldn't continue from there. So a young officer was promoted in the field and put in charge of the battalion, which he then leads into the Talic Valley, fighting both the remaining Gallian soldiers but also the now puppeted bodies of the former Angmark army. He fights his way through and wins the day, but the experience is so much that he is then he's seen too much. He can't be around now for peace talks and so on. He is dismissed and discharged and sent away. And anyone who has read At the Sign of a Running Horse will know that that officer was Elvin Ranley, and that's where that whole story arc begins. But having seen that fighting in Talic Valley, later renamed Blood Valley because of the huge battle that had happened there, he goes out to walk the world and try and get past it. So all of that is the reason that this is called the Muster of Gallio, because it's the tensest battle in Mithrym's history. Complete change of pace now as we move into track 5, the Festival in Tilio. Hopefully a lot more relaxing. Tilio, as you may be able to guess, and as anyone who's played this will know, is loosely based on Italy. The idea here was to have something that was not quite so relaxing as the Lakes of Kellyn, but still good for general just having fun. You're going about, the characters are exploring, talking to traders, getting to know the area, finding out exposition. That hurdy-gurdy coming in there really makes me smile, because to my mind that is the marker of proper medieval music. So the image that we're trying to paint here is of a street in the middle of a bustling city. During the height of summer, flowers are everywhere, there are banners, there's dancing, everyone is happy and excited, everything is at peace, and through this your characters can be moving. It's nice sort of relaxation. Hopefully calm them down enough that they will actually then interact and look for things on their quests. Won't question too much what they should do next. It won't take half an hour to open a door. As I think I said, Runa, who are playing this, this is one of those ones where it really showed off just how many instruments they had, as hurdy-gurdies are not a particularly common instrument that people tend to have. But they had 2 of them, which they used when they made this. The drums drop. Again, I imagine there are people coming out at this point and dancing in the middle of the square as the people all look on. Of course, this would be a perfect opportunity if you're game master for a game where they're watching as the dancing happens, for you to have them do a wisdom check and see if they notice the pickpocket just behind them. And running through the streets, trying to catch up with them, only to be constantly blocked at every way by people who are too busy celebrating. Yes, the pull push can be very confusing. It's even more confusing when there's a dummy door just to catch the rogue out. So that was the festival in Tilio. We're now moving on to a drink at the Dragon's Head. So as I mentioned earlier, the Welcome to Mithrym track was originally meant to be a sort of a tavern piece that you could imagine sitting there in a tavern, sort of a smell of ale and food, the sound of chatter going on. We didn't get that with that, but we did with this. At least I certainly think we did. There is something, you could imagine holding a tankard and swinging it as this plays. So in a game that you'd be doing, again, this is a really good one for not so much downtime, but you can easily have on in the background when something positive is going on that requires their attention. There's a sense of engagement, excitement, to try and keep them focused on what they're doing. And again, it would suit a busy sort of scene, either indoors in a tavern or an inn where there is, again, dancing going on and there might be a lot of confusion or events happening. Or alternatively, you could still even use this one for an outdoor festival or marketplace. It does have a bit of a sea shanty feel. Hold on to that thought though, because we're going to have one in a moment which is intended to actually sound a bit like a sea shanty. Again, something about dropping down to just melody and a drum gets me every time. I'm half tempted now to actually get my tankards out. I've got them somewhere downstairs in the kitchen. It's been too long since I was at a laugh or a reenactment event. I want to have proper reason to actually drink out of pewter. Beer just tastes better out of pewter. So another key thing with these tracks, by the way, each of them is somewhere between 3 and 3.5 minutes long. The intention with that is that an individual track could be put on repeat while you're in a particular situation. Because I'm sure any experienced game master will know that it is very rare that a single scene in a game finishes in a matter of minutes. But one of these, because there's variation as it goes through, you could set an individual track running and just imagine that that is the band playing that entire time. Okay, we are now moving into one of our first area specific. If you listen to that haunting sound over the wind there, would you believe it if I told you that Kanath is largely desert? So again, there is hopefully a generic feel to this. However, specific to Mithrym, to give the background, Kanath is one of the largest countries in Arenia, which is the central continent of Mithrym. It is essentially based on Egypt, hence Pyramids of Kanath. The history of Kanath is that it was originally made up of many small sort of kingships or chieftains. Much warring happened even before the crafters came to Mithrym. Kanath was an area of constant war and upheaval. There is an event that you'll see in the timeline for Kanath called the 1 Year Peace, in which there were many emperors who tried to claim that they had the whole place under their control, and they were constantly defeated, assassinated, removed, or just ignored by the general population. And it was over time, over the course of about 2,000 years, that eventually one family managed to seize control and cement it by marrying into the other main families gradually. From that point, Kanath has been an empire that spans from the Northern Sea all the way down to lush jungles at its south. And one of the later events, once Angmar was formed, far more recently within Mithrym, they attempted to invade Kanath and were repelled, and since then have been allowed to have a consular, but with a constant reminder. And again, if you read Scales of Justice, you'll see some of this, that the diplomats from Angmar are humoured more than wanted by Kanath, and Kanath consider themselves far more ancient than any of the other kingdoms or empires in Mithrym. A very proud nation who do not like interference from other countries. Sand, yes, of course. Irritating, gets everywhere. Okay, we're about to move into another very location specific. Can anyone guess what this one might be? Runa again, when I said to them, I gave them a brief for this one, and I said, do you by any chance have a didgeridoo? To which they said, do we? We've got many, and began to produce multiple didgeridoos. And my goodness, they really hit the brief on this one. So I said I wanted something that sounded like the Australian outback. This is for Ozza, which is in Mithrym, in the very southeast. Ozza is an enormous island with Devil's Land and Aterra nearby, and would you believe it, Ozza is based on Australia, Devil's Land is based on Tasmania, and Aterra is based on New Zealand. In the very centre of Ozza is a large flat rock known as Eanes Rock. Anyone who's playing the End Times will know that it is a place of ancient magic. There is in fact a temple there, which is one of the... I don't think I'm giving any spoilers by saying this, because those who are playing the game have already found this out. There is a temple there which is one of the ones that binds Imu in the frozen wastes, and only if the temple is activated and ultimately destroyed will that bond be broken. But then again, who would seek out the three temples and activate them and destroy them? Surely nobody, because what good would come of releasing Imu into the world? No one would do that. No. So yes, as far as using this track in a game goes, though, there is definitely an Australian sort of feel to it with the didgeridoo, but I feel that there is still quite a generic sense of exploration and suspense. Hopefully you'll feel it as well, that there's something about unease and searching to go with it. You're not quite sure what's going to come out, but hopefully the adventurers will be keen to find out. Have I heard the nose flute from New Zealand? I feel like you're setting me up for something there. If I say no, is that when you shove a flute up my nose, Spades? Okay, so that was Eanes Rock. We're now moving into track 9, which is Sailing for Adventure. So I mentioned earlier to keep that thought about a sea shanty. So this one is the one which was meant to be equivalent to a working song on a ship. You'll hear the shaker as well in a moment to give a sense of spray or wash in the air. The instrument playing at the moment is, I believe, called a sakba, and a wonderful medieval instrument. Very piercing sort of tone to it. As we get into it and the rhythm really begins, you should hopefully get the atmosphere of a busy working ship. Imagine, if you will, sailors climbing the rigging, pulling on ropes, doing whatever it is sailors do. Believe it or not, I don't actually know much about piloting a ship, so they would be turning levers and pulling ropes and tying knots or untying knots, or whatever it is that sailors do. They're running about doing it at the moment, all as the spray of the sea comes up into the air, filling your nostrils with the scent of salt. Who was it? And the traditional one looks like the plastic one looks gooberific. Wow. Okay. I mean, I've heard of nose flutes. I don't know about New Zealand in particular for them. They do look quite fascinating instruments, though. Do you have a nose flute, Spades? Should I expect to maybe see a demonstration of one at some point? There's that shaker coming in there, hopefully giving that sort of sense of splash. And the constant drum beat. The sailors are given the various orders to run about. So again, as far as a game goes, my expectation would be to have this one on, well, for anything set at sea or anything where you want that driving, we've got to get this done, it's constant. It's not a threat, but there is work to be done that needs to be finished, and there's that drive to get it done. Moses, alas, fluteless. Oh dear. I don't know if I can get you a wooden one, but would you like a plastic nose flute, Spades? Okay, right, we're just about to move now into track 10. So this is that first track again, How It All Begun. This is an instrumental version of it. So this is the one that we heard at the beginning where Unfake Essa hadn't realised you needed your speakers on, or didn't have them on. But this is essentially the karaoke version of that one. So hopefully once you've heard the real one, if you find yourself desperately wanting to sing along, you can stick this track on and sing along as if you were the tavern entertainment that evening. Again, this one can be quite handy for just any general sort of exposition or setting where you're trying to establish tone or mood. There is a bit of a sort of attention to it, at least in some of the parts, so I could imagine you using this one to sort of play on that or build that, to get that sense of something's coming or something needs to be done. So again, because I know a couple of people have joined since, just to say each of the tracks on this album is probably about 3 minutes long. Part of the idea is that you can, any of the instrumental ones can be played on repeat if they have a particular mood or feel that you want to have. And there's enough variation throughout them that they won't feel like you're constantly listening to the same portion. There's the rise and the fall and the drop and the pick up, to keep that mood going, whether that's combat or exploration, investigation, downtime. The exception, of course, being the two that have lyrics. So there was the full lyric version of this one at the beginning, and there'll be one coming up next as well. And as mentioned, lyrics for both tracks will be available through Bandcamp. For those who buy the track, you can download the lyrics. Okay. Now we move into the final track. I won't say too much during this, give a bit of explanation afterwards. Hopefully you'll enjoy the lyrics. Love that choir in the background.
Back when there was only sky and the stars merely glimmered by, when not a sound by ear could be heard, till the strike of a hammer would sound throughout the world, till the strike of a hammer would sound throughout the world. The bellows that light a great fire beyond every cloud, the furnace that blazed at the embers echoing loud, its light and its warmth brought forth an honest smile. The anvil it waited eagerly just for a while. The anvil waited eagerly just for a while. By the hammer of Eve and the flame of his breath, by the hand of creation that cannot fear death, by the wings of the dragons soaring far away, by the strength of my arm and the wit of my mind, the gods they are mighty and he is kind, may his furnace bring light to my everyday. Never lead us astray. From the furnace one molten piece he took, he smote the metal till the world it shook. An orb was formed with rivers and mountains and seas, where sprouted the stones, the flowers and towering trees, where sprouted the stones, the flowers and towering trees. He placed his hands upon his great creation, and his fingers ran through the lands with many a nation. Thus kingdom and tribe had formed and life had begun. But the work of the God of the forge it never is done. But the work of the God of the forge it never is done. By the hammer of Eve and the flame of his breath, by the hand of creation that cannot fear death, by the wings of the dragons soaring far away, by the strength of my arm and the wit of my mind, the gods they are mighty and he is kind, may his furnace bring light to my everyday. Never lead us astray.
So that was Ian's Lullaby. Absolutely lovely track. Flotnar, who did it, they based it entirely on the first piece of lore called Ian's Forge. It was really nice. Now, funnily enough, when I sent them the brief for it, the intention was again for something more sort of like a tavern song or a drinking song that you could imagine lots of people joining in, again swinging their tankards and coming in on the chorus. I wasn't disappointed when I got it though, because what it sounded so much like instead was very much a lullaby or a song that I could imagine being sung by a parent in Mithrym to their child to try and get them off to sleep, which is probably no surprise, given I'll read a small section of the lore. Eanes Forge, the creation of Mithrym. It begins. It has always been told, every father to his daughter, every mother to her son, how the world was formed in the beginnings of time. The void was dark, and Ian worked alone in the forge. The floor was cold, and the lofty roof was filled with silence. Ian looked at the anvil, the hammer, and the furnace, and dreamt of what might be. And that's very much what they were capturing, I think, in that track. So rather than being a sing-along, it became this lullaby. There's a sort of a yes, Spates, as you say. There's almost a slight lament to it. There's a slight sort of bitterness to it, but at the same time, this sort of calmness that you are being protected, even though the world is a very scary place. Or possibly on a melancholy night, yes. Or possibly towards the end of the night, once the everyone's just that point of drunk where it stopped being fun and you're just a bit too sort of sad now. That's when the band put most of the instruments away and they just keep the gentle drum and the lilting guitar. And that's when they sing Ian's lullaby just before the landlord calls last orders and kicks you all out. So that's the album. It will be available for general purchase and listening on Bandcamp from the 15th of May, but it is available for pre-order now. The whole thing, so 11 tracks, about 40 minutes long, is available for £7. Each track individually is £1, so I'm sure you can see that if you buy the whole thing, you're getting a very good deal, £7 for 11 tracks. That said, anyone who is already backing in a paid tier on Patreon before then, so whether you already are now or whether you sign up between now and the 15th, for any paid tier, you will get Welcome to Mithrym absolutely free, yours to keep forever, MP3 download. So see, this happens. Yeah, Melancholy Night, a funeral rite, returning to the Maker. Oh, I can see that. I can imagine that very much actually, playing as they lower the body, or possibly. I mean, I've not really gone into sort of burial or death rituals for Mithrym, other than, funnily enough, the fact that because followers of Imu get raised as skeletons and things like that. So I've covered the way that they are prepared. Those of you who played or listened into the Cult of Imu game will know about the Room of Preparation. Is a room in any of the temples of Imu where there's a massive cauldron, and followers of Imu get thrown in and boiled down to their bones so they can be raised as skeletons. There's a room of rising, which is like for the less important, the ones that are not so concerned about, they get left so they can be raised as zombies. That said, I do wonder. I mean, tell me what you think. But given that this is a world in which the god of all gods is seen as having a forge and a fire, perhaps it would be fitting that they cremate the faithful in the fire, much like Ian's furnace. NPCs don't die, right? Right? Oh no. NPCs live forever, absolutely forever, definitely. Um, yeah, there's no reason to think that, with a plot called The End Times, that there will ever be an end. But no, funnily enough, Mithrym has no concept of an afterlife either. The followers of Imu live on as undead, but there's no unlike things like D&D and a few of the other sort of tabletop roleplay worlds. There is no there's no resurrection. There's no afterlife that your soul can be brought back from in Mithrym. When a character's dead, they're dead. That said, you can always roll a new character. That's always the option. Mithrym being built on Dungeon Rune was made with the sort of expectation that you might even make a new character every game, or that you play an adventure and then you roll a new character for the next adventure. It's one of the reasons if you ever get like the Hunger Games. Do they cremate people in the Hunger Games? I didn't know that. I should probably actually read those at some point. Um, but yeah, so the idea with Dungeon Rune, and if you ever get the box set of Dungeon Rune or Mithrym or Corovolon for that matter, actually, you'll see this that the character sheets come as like tear off pads, kind of like notepads. And the idea is that you can burn through like 10 or 20 or 40 or even 50 of them as you just try out different characters or combinations and all sorts. I happen to know that one person who's currently listening at the moment has a copy of a Dungeon Rune box set coming to them, thanks to their top tier backing of the Kickstarter, which included a fully boxed game. But that said, for anyone who doesn't know already, if you ever want the physical copies of any of these games, they're available from the Game Crafter. Mithrym, Dungeon Rune, Corovolon, and as keeps appearing in all our material, the soon to launch Cities of Sten, which is 100% coming. Unfortunately, between this album and the Kickstarter and everything, it's been slightly delayed, but it will be coming later this year. Cities of Sten, funnily enough, it's been sort of worked out outside, actually follows on from Mithrym. All of the games based on it are on a single timeline, which again, if you back top tier on Patreon, you get a poster showing the full Dungeon Rune timeline. The initial state of things was the two consciousnesses, the goddesses, created the universe, and that's Corovolon. However, at the end of that, as everything gets sucked into the black hole, even the consciousnesses get joined and they become one consciousness, and that one consciousness is Een. Een then dreams, whilst held in the singularity. That consciousness dreams of a vast fantasy world. The Great Dream, that is called, which is the title of the Kickstarter, as some of you may know. The Great Dream is Dungeon Rune itself. It is, you can, whatever you want goes on there. It doesn't have to make sense. There is no continuity because it's a dream. It's all one big dream dreamt by a creator stuck in a black hole of their own creation. Bursting out of the black hole, though, Een is then alone in space. And that's where the lore picks up that Een was alone and felt lonely, and so made the sun, and then made a planet to go around it, and that planet was Mithrym. And Een sent where the goddesses previously had sort of directly acted themselves in the universe. Een sent avatars called the Crafters into Mithrym and stayed back. But even then, the crafters eventually begin to squabble. You have the Six versus Imu, and at the end of time, Een, angry that there is this conflict going on, strikes his hammer, which brings the red dragons back to Mithrym. The red dragons are on the side of the righteous. Imu has made the black dragons, which rise up for his army, and a new continent appears on the other side of the world. And that is where the final battle will happen. This is the story of the end times. And again, a quick plug, if you're interested in playing a game where you get to ride those dragons, Mithrym Dragon Riders has just hit the Game Crafter. It is a fun card game where you each pick which side you're on. You're flying a red dragon or a black dragon. You've got up to 2 on each side. That said, if you buy multiple copies of the game, you could have any number on each side. It's very sort of fast-paced, quick maneuvers. You have an archer on the back of the dragon, and the dragon itself shooting arrows and fire at each other, trying to take the others out. But yeah, so all of that happens. Now, slight spoiler alert for this one, because there will actually be a novel, The End Times, at some point. So cover your ears if you don't want to know how it ends. But funnily enough, believe it or not, Mithrym comes to an end, or at least Mithrym as we know it comes to an end, when both sides annihilate each other. The crafters even appear in their full form and they fight each other. And they all die. The avatars of Een are killed and they fall deep beneath the earth, this sort of crash. And the humans that are left behind on this other continent have no means of getting back. They flew there on dragons, They have no way of getting back to the countries that they left, and so on this new continent, they are essentially plunged into a new Stone Age. That they are primitive, just trying to get by. They have no dragons. They have no magic to make use of. And thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years go by as they forget the old world. And Ian, sad at what happened, has pulled out of Mithrym and is not interested anymore. He had a dream, he made it happen, and oh, how terribly it went. And so those people begin to gradually learn technology, and towns become cities, and cities become massive on this new continent. The continent eventually becomes named Sten because it is thick stone that it's built on. Deep beneath the surface, the fallen bodies of the crafters, the avatars, are breaking down, and their magic is leaching up through the soil. And everywhere that these points converge is where the cities have been built. And these lines of power that run between them are then used to power super fast magical trains that join the cities together, because it's been worked out that there is something evil, desperate in the wild areas that is lurking. So travelers dare not just go out into the wilderness for fear of what they will find there. But unfortunately, this means that they tend to feel quite uh, enclosed in their cities. And then this is Cities of Sten. Cities of Sten will be it's a detective noir, cyberpunk sort of feel, and yeah, it will be coming later this year. Proper detective one where you can play as a human, or a genetically enhanced human, or as an android, or a mechanically enhanced human. And there is magic. The original image that kicked it off was of a detective stood on a street corner, clicking his fingers to make a small flame appear on his thumb, which he then uses to light his cigarette because he's getting too old for this shit. And off he goes into the cold, dark city. But yeah, so that's the Dungeon Rune timeline, taking you all the way from Corrovalon to Cities of Sten via Mithrym and Dungeon Rune itself. So it was a fun. I want to see this Far Too Furious version of Mithrym. Which game are we now talking about? Yeah, Cities of Sten, absolutely. Can't wait to play that game. I will be looking for playtesters at some point quite soon. I will be doing some fun games. Team Rangers. There you go. And yes, it is a good poster. Spates, you speak the truth. I hope that people are encouraged to try and get their own copies at some point. Okay. I think that's where we're going to wrap it up. So again, just a reminder, the album will be properly dropping on the 15th. I hope you enjoyed having a listen through today. If you are interested in pre-ordering, you can do. It will secure you the whole album, and you will get automatically notified when it's available to you. Alternatively, from the 15th, you can just get a copy of it. The opening track, How It All Begun, with full lyrics and everything, is available to listen to as a demo at polarbearrpg.bandcamp.com. Thank you all so much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you for joining me for this lesson. Goodbye.